In the early hours of July 4th, 2025, the Guadalupe River in central Texas unleashed one of the deadliest flash floods in state history, claiming dozens of lives in minutes as entire RV parks and campgrounds were swallowed without warning. Amid the catastrophe, one ordinary father refused to wait for rescue that might never come. Mike Henderson lived full-time in this travel trailer with his 3 young sons, and in those critical minutes, he made a split-second decision that would save their lives. How far would any father go to protect his children when nature turns deadly in seconds? This is the incredible true story of the Texas flood dad escape, a harrowing tale of survival that stands out amid overwhelming tragedy. But to understand why Mike Henderson and his boys were even in that trailer on that fateful morning, we must go back to the ordinary life they had built together in the Texas Hill Country. Mike Henderson was a single dad who had chosen the nomadic but affordable life of full-time RV, living after a tough divorce, raising Jacob, Tyler, and Connor on his own, while working odd jobs as a mechanic in nearby Kerrville. The boys loved their riverfront home, where weekends meant fishing, swimming, and simple adventures that made up for the lack of a traditional house. Their daily routine was modest, but filled with love. Mike made sure the boys kept up with online schooling during summer break and always had hot meals and bedtime stories, no matter how tight space was in the trailer. Life in the RV park felt safe and predictable, surrounded by other families enjoying the scenic beauty of the Guadalupe River, with little hint of the dangers that lay just beneath its peaceful surface. Mike had recently taken on extra repair jobs to save for a more stable spot farther from the river, but for now the trailer remained their everything. The boys were energetic and close-knit, with Jacob acting as the responsible big brother, Tyler the curious middle child, and little Connor the family comedian who kept everyone smiling. Evenings always ended the same way, stories of adventure and promises of a brighter future, no matter how uncertain their RV life sometimes felt. Weather reports had mentioned scattered showers for the holiday weekend, but nothing that raised serious alarm in a region used to summer storms. No one in the campground could have imagined that those light rains would soon become something far more sinister. By the afternoon of July 3rd, the rain had begun in earnest. But Mike and the boys still planned a simple 4th of July celebration with fireworks and river swimming the next day. The family enjoyed a quiet dinner together, talking about school starting soon and how lucky they were to have the river as their backyard. Mike had checked the river a few times that evening and noticed it rising slightly, but local reports still called it nothing unusual for the area. The boys fell asleep quickly to the sound of rain, excited for the holiday morning ahead. Little did they know that upstream rains were already feeding a wall of water headed straight for the campground. The night passed quietly at first, but the river was quietly transforming into a deadly force. At around 3:45 a.m., the first official warnings began pinging across phones in the campground. Mike woke instantly to the sound and the alert, his fatherly instincts kicking in immediately. There was no time to hesitate. Mike knew they had to move fast. The boys sensed the urgency in their father's voice and followed his lead without question. In those terrifying seconds, the water level had risen dramatically, confirming the worst. Mike made the call right then, no waiting for the RV to be hooked up or for help that might not arrive in time. With the river now surging faster than anyone expected, the only option was to head immediately for higher ground on foot. Every step was a battle against the current, but Mike kept his sons moving forward with calm determination. In those final critical moments before the river claimed more victims, Mike Henderson's quick actions were about to make the difference between life and death for his 3 boys. The water was now rising so rapidly that every second counted, turning their simple escape into a life-or-death struggle against the powerful current. Jacob, the oldest, instinctively took on a protective role, yelling over the roar of the rain to keep Tyler and Connor focused on holding on. Tyler nearly lost his balance as the current strengthened, but his father's strong grip kept the family together in the chaos. Mike aimed for the highest point he could see, knowing that even a few extra feet of elevation could mean survival as the Guadalupe River continued its merciless surge. For a brief moment, they paused on anything solid they could find. allowing Mike to assess their situation amid the deafening roar of the flood. "Stay close, boys. We're almost to higher ground," Mike told them, his voice steady despite the panic rising inside him. Behind them, their home on wheels was being torn away by the river, but Mike refused to look back, focusing only on getting his sons to safety. They reached the utility shed just as the water climbed to chest level on Mike, giving the boys a momentary platform above the worst of the current. For the first time since leaving the trailer, they had a few seconds to breathe, though the floodwaters were still rising dangerously around the building. Mike could see rescue teams struggling in the distance, but the water between them made any immediate help impossible. The structure wasn't safe for long, forcing Mike to make another tough call to keep pushing toward even higher ground on the campground access road. The current pulled harder with every step, but the boys trusted their father completely and kept moving as one unit. Tyler began to tire visibly, his small legs struggling against the force of the water, prompting Mike to shout words of encouragement over the storm. "You're doing great, Tyler. Just a little farther," Mike called out, his voice cutting through the noise to keep his middle son motivated. Slowly but surely, they were gaining elevation, though the rain showed no sign of letting up, and the river continued to expand its deadly reach. At last, they stood on relatively solid ground, the worst of the immediate current behind them, but they were far from safe. The sight of their trailer and the entire park being destroyed was heartbreaking, but Mike focused on the fact that his boys were still with him and alive. He quickly assessed that they were cold and scared, but miraculously uninjured, thanks to their quick departure from the trailer. With the immediate danger of being swept away reduced, Mike began thinking about finding help or a safe shelter until the flood subsided. Mike tried signaling for help, hoping the emergency teams could spot them amid the widespread disaster unfolding across Ingram and surrounding areas. The whole family worked together, their voices joining in a desperate call for rescue that echoed over the roaring waters. Finally, signs of professional rescue appeared, giving the exhausted family a renewed sense of hope. They had survived the initial escape, but reaching the rescuers would require one final push through the still dangerous edges of the flood. As the boat drew closer, Mike felt a wave of relief, knowing his quick thinking had brought them this far. Strong hands from the rescue team lifted the boys to safety one by one, with Mike last confirming that the Texas flood dad had successfully protected his family against overwhelming odds. Safe aboard the rescue vessel, the reality of what they had just escaped began to sink in for the entire family. In that moment, Mike knew his split-second decision to flee the trailer on foot had saved their lives when so many others were not as fortunate. The family was taken to a temporary shelter for evaluation, where they would learn the full scale of the disaster that had devastated the region. Though they had lost almost everything in the flood, including their home on wheels, the Hendersons emerged with what mattered most: each other. The Texas flood dad escape became a beacon of hope amid the 2025 Guadalupe River tragedy, reminding everyone that a father's love and quick thinking can overcome even the most devastating forces of nature.